Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time, but sometimes it's a Tuesday and we go down the road.
Down. Everyone's singing in harmony.
We didn't practice this. Who's going high?
We're all alone. We don't need to practice.
I physically can't go high, so I will do the low
I'm a
part.
soprano.
I am Sasheer Zamata being like, I will take
There
the
you
low
go.
notes.
I think that makes me Patty Lupone in this scenario.
There you go.
So.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Well, that means, guys, we are discussing Agatha All Along today. And Laura and I are three friends.
Three best friends.
We welcome to the pod Ashley Anglin, who is the author of Undiscovered, and was so nice where we put a shout out on Twitter to be like, who wants to talk about this TV show? She was right there. And
I was
volunteered. and we took that immediately.
But Ashley, could you tell us a little bit about your experience with Agatha All Along? This is a new series, so it's not going to be like, this has been with me for decades. But what was your experience with the show?
So I have two things that I think make it very special to me. One happy and one sad, but that's the kind of show that it is too. So
Yes.
the happy one is I, for 1 year, went to college with Kristen Anderson Lopez, who's one of the songwriters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like my only claim to fame. Her freshman year and my sophomore year.
Yeah, she wrote
like
Let It Go and Remember Me in Coco.
Exactly. So I went to William and Mary. I'm wearing my William and Mary shirt, actually.
Oh, perfect.
And she was there for 1 year and then transferred to some place bigger and better for her like musical theater aspirations. We were in a musical together and she like sang the huge show-stopping number and I like acted myself into the nearly tenor role of the grandmother. So that was the kind of theater experience that I usually had. But when Frozen came out, one of the theater friends from college texted the rest of us and was like, "It's that Kristen Anderson." And we're like, "Oh, what?"
Oh my
So
gosh.
I have I like before everything blew up for her, I friended her on Facebook and like I, get to follow her personal account and stuff. So
That's
she
amazing.
and her amazing genius husband post all these cool musical deep dives and like that's why I watched WandaVision. Like I'm not into Marvel, but it's not like, oh, I must watch everything they ever make ever. But that one I was like, okay, the way they're talking about this interesting music stuff. And to me, the music was a huge like that's one of my favorite tropes when like the song is the key to everything. I love it. I love it. I've loved it since I was a child. So that's one of my big takes on the series that I loved. The other thing is that, not to get all heavy as I'm speaking my first paragraph to you guys, I am a bereaved parent. And the way that it was handled so beautifully as part of Agatha's story, like it hit really right. And I really appreciated it. So those are my two things that I'm bringing to the table today.
No, that's
I love
amazing.
that perspective too.
Yeah. Laura.
I love that it was done well.
Yeah, it really is so well.
We will definitely get into grieving and loss and everything.
Yeah.
I think WandaVision and Agatha All Along are perfect
Big
mirrors.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Laura, what's your experience with Agatha All Along?
So listeners of the pod will know that I am a huge Iron Man fan.
Oh,
just kidding. Not.
Oh, not.
She recently, like over the course of 2 years, was like, I think I'm gonna watch all the Marvel movies. You've watched all the Marvel movies, and then we just had like random moments where she's like, I watched 3. One of these took me 10 days because I physically couldn't watch it anymore. And most of them were Iron Man. So
I've been trying to make my way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everything that's available on Disney Plus in like the timeline order. And it's been a journey. And I have famously just been a big fan of some of the newer works because I think that the newer works are really well done. And especially, I really liked WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was excellent. And I was a very big fan of Agatha All Along as well. Hannah, what's your journey with Agatha all along?
So I'm probably the one who watched the most Marvel joints of the three of us, because I started watching them not, I think around Captain America, I started like going to the theaters and seeing almost every one. I remember specifically Captain America because I dragged my sister and I was like, oh, these are famous for having like scenes at the end. We have to wait till the end. And she got really mad about it.
The
We
credits
both
are
have,
so long,
she
to
has
be fair.
ADHD. We both do. And she was sitting there like, I can't believe you're making me sit through this. This is so stupid. And then the cutscene was about the Avengers movie, and she doesn't care about Iron Man, but she really loves Robert Downey Jr. And so she like immediately was like, oh, Robert Downey Jr.'s here. And I was like, okay, so a complete
I
180
love that
from
she didn't know it. It was in them.
yeah, I know. And she was so excited. So then we had to like go watch Avengers together. And so I had watched all of the Marvel movies, and I feel like WandaVision hit during like when I was the most excited about Marvel because it was coming to the
Mhm.
close and I thought that it was really interesting. And I really loved WandaVision. It hit during the
So
pandemic.
good.
It like there was so much love and fanfare around it, and I
Mhm.
think that's when I like really got into it. And then there was diminishing returns on almost every Marvel series after it.
Yeah.
And I think a complete lack of respect for the Wanda character in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So I
Let's
was a
not
little
really
bit,
dwell on that one.
yeah,
It's
it
not
was just,
great.
it was so bad. And like the elements that were good, but like people have gone on record that the people who made that movie didn't even watch WandaVision. So they had no
What?
yeah, like a bunch of them didn't, so they had no recollection of anything that made WandaVision so important.
Mhm.
They just knew one tiny little piece of it.
Mhm.
And so I got a little bit of Marvel fatigue around like the time that I forget which one I was watching, but I was like, I can't watch these for a while. So Laura's actually like surpassed me in Marvel
Yeah.
knowledge by now because she's
Oh,
watched a lot more of the TV
I
series.
wouldn't say knowledge, but I've watched the
Yeah,
exposure.
shows.
exposure. Yes, she's had more exposure than I have at this point because I lost a lot of stamina around Doctor Strange in the Marvel or in the Multiverse
Hmm.
of Madness. So I didn't watch the first couple episodes of Agatha All Along until Laura was like, "Hannah, this is amazing,"
Oh,
and she was
yeah.
so
Hmm.
excited to watch it. And so I like sat down and watched the first couple episodes, and I was blown away. I became obsessed. I also like have a very specific love of Catherine Hahn. She
So
is
valid.
definitely yeah, and I
Yeah.
think like when I was having my bisexual awakening, like that was the time that Bad Moms came out, and I was like, oh God, she's amazing. And so I think she helped with that a little bit. Um, because she's so cool and I loved the show so much. So that's kind of my experience. So all
There's a
I
She
variety of
she was
experiences here.
yeah.
she was born to be Agatha. Like
Sh
Oh,
she's been
yes.
good in other things, but I never was like, oh yeah, she's a quality actor. But WandaVision, I was like, hello,
sh
like you are doing
Hmm.
really some solid, yeah, character work with the way that like the decades changed and she
mhm,
was doing she more than Wanda, I thought, because she
Hmm.
was, I don't know, like a different role in the setting and the series and everything, like really nailed the TV acting delivery for the
mhm.
Yes.
different decades. Oh my gosh. And I'm gathering from looking at you guys that I'm a lot older than you, which happens to me. I'm roughly Catherine Hahn years old, a little bit older
Oh,
than her. So
nice. You
I
don't look
remember
it.
more of it. Hmm?
But yeah, well,
I
she
feel
didn't
like I would totally agree with that assessment, though, that her acting is, she has like such a range, and
She
that she's able
does.
to, and really you can like look at the different roles that people would know her from and be like,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely, she'd be able to pull some of these things off. And I
Yeah.
think
yeah.
when I started this show, I was like, oh, yes, we're definitely getting into that range because it starts off with something that I totally didn't expect, where it's like almost like a murder mystery, like who done
Oh,
it
where she's in the detective
situation.
persona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that she acted that so well too.
So well.
Well, there are certain parts of this like show that I feel like borrowed, not borrowed from WandaVision, but extended from WandaVision, but they
Yes.
took like all the best elements. So it's like incredibly referential to other media. And Laura
Yes.
pointed
Hmm.
this out when we were chit-chatting about it. Like all of the different trials are very specific, like similar homages to horror films.
Yep.
Hmm.
And that's so interesting. And that one, like, the writers of the show have admitted, like, no, it's Mare of Easttown. Like, episode 1 is Mare of Easttown. That's what we're
Mhm.
doing. We're paying
Oh,
homage to it.
interesting. Which I haven't seen that. I know of it, but I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Well, and I noticed it with because HBO is like pretty renowned, and I didn't notice this until my second watch through because there's so much you could experience from the second
Hmm.
watch around when you're in on the story a little bit more.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But the opening credits and the first episode is like a very different version of Witch's Road. And it's
Uh-huh.
because like they do that in a lot of HBO shows. Specifically, The Wire has a song that they redo every season in a different tone.
Oh.
And so that was like very much there, and I
That's my
loved
love
it.
language. Yeah.
I
Always
love
love
that
that.
kind of stuff though. I
I
even
know.
loved when we get like farther on. This is an episode that I want to talk more about, but when
Hmm.
we're in episode 7, where they're all
Mhm.
dressed up as the different like
That's the Patty
canonical
Lupone
witches.
episode, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I
God
thought that that was
almighty.
like an interesting shout out too to like different witches in
Hmm.
media
Hmm.
and how they all were very fitting for the
Right.
characters
And how they
that
chose who was which one.
Yes.
I
No, that
thought it was
was,
just so well
yeah,
done.
that was one of the best hours of TV I've ever seen.
Yes.
I loved that so much. It's just like, so Catherine Hahn, beautiful in and of herself.
Yes.
Sasheer Zamata brought it hard, where
Yes.
like when she and Patty LuPone are talking in the episode, and she's like, "We could talk about the cultural appropriation later. Can you help us right
Right.
now?" Like, it's just so beautiful.
Sasheer
But
was another standout for me. Like I thought that her performance was so wonderful, and I was so glad that like the way that they had the arc of that character go,
Hmm.
mhm,
Hmm.
because it felt like it was done in service to Black women,
yes,
and
Very
I just
thoughtful. Yeah.
yes, it was very thoughtful, and I was just like, thank you for not making this just like here's our token Black person.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they will not make it past episode 2. And
Right.
I feel like they even left it open for her character, Jen's character, to have her own spin-off, which
hmm
Hmm.
could be
Hmm.
awesome.
yeah. No, I thought her character was so good. She has like got on record that she is a witch. So
Oh, wow.
like,
Oh, I didn't know that.
she pitched herself for this. Like she found out they were casting and she was like,
Amazing.
I want to be considered. And she kind of started like studying witchcraft, it sounds like, around the time she was doing her stand-up special because she did like a research
Interesting.
bit on witches. And so when she got the part, she like emailed them and she's like, "Did you guys know that you hired a witch?" Like,
That's amazing.
but you could
Casting was
tell.
really well done though in general because like
Yeah.
just throwing in like randomly Patty Lupone and
Just
being
randomly.
randomly like okay, she acted the hell out of this role.
Good
Yeah.
What
God.
a fantastic performance. And people complain sometimes about like her being too forward or whatever. I'm like, you know what? She deserves to say whatever she wants to say. She's a
She's
gift to
like
us.
over 60, right? She gets to
Yeah.
say whatever the heck she wants.
Oh yeah.
How sweary are we on this podcast?
As
Oh no,
much
you
as you
can,
want to
yeah, as
be.
much
Okay.
as you want.
Yeah.
Like, also, this
She
is
gets to
such
say
a
whatever the fuck she wants. She's Patty
exactly.
Yes.
Lupone.
She's also like, I feel like we do not discuss enough like the type of theater
She's
energy that people
75, by the way,
have.
so
Yes.
she's earned it.
And like people are talking about it with the Wicked premieres coming
Yeah.
out, where like
Yeah.
the two main cast characters like go around and they're like crying to each other, holding hands, and everyone is like, people who have been in a theater
They're
production
theater
know
kids.
exactly
Yeah.
this energy. And so like it's like,
Yeah.
well, Patty LuPone has theater energy, so
She
she's going
does.
to be a little bit ridiculous, and we can all admit that
Right.
like that's fine because of who she
And
is.
I
So,
think that's an advantage to any TV show involving the Lopezes because they are theater kids.
oh
And
yeah.
like back when Frozen came out, it was a really big deal that it was starring Idina Menzel instead of like a Hollywood actor.
hmm
Yeah.
Because she
So
can
I
sing
totally sensed their
songs.
fingers on Patty Lupone being there.
Well, and I do want to go
Well, the
back,
casting
Laura.
of Joe Locke was good
Oh,
too, in my opinion,
He's
because
terrific.
yeah, I only knew him from Heartstopper, but apparently he's been doing some Broadway not stunts,
He's
stints
in
too.
Romeo and Juliet or something.
oh, good.
Yeah.
I think so.
Oh no, wait, is that the other
No, that's
kid?
the other one.
That's
That's
Kit
the other one.
Connor. Yeah, I lied to
That's
you.
Kit.
He was in Sweeney Todd and the
Okay.
Trials.
Oh,
Yes.
excuse me, Sweeney Todd. That's all.
But I think that he does a great job too, and he has quite a bit of range, honestly, for someone as young as he is. And I was pretty impressed by his performance in this show too.
He was
I
lovely.
I
And
think
I'm
he was
very
the Oh,
I'm
go
very
ahead.
picky about accents, and he does a great American accent.
Yes.
He does do a great American accent. His was the one that like on rewatch hit a little bit less for me, but also he's a young adult
He's a
Mhm.
teen.
who's
Like,
with some of the best actresses of our time. And so I'm like, yeah, of course, when you stack him up against that cast,
Right.
he's going to feel a little bit more green. But also, I felt like the script knew, like, I love the writers of this show
Mhm.
because they seem to know, like, how to work with that. Like, Catherine Hahn improvised a lot of the scene of her interrogating him. And you could see him
In the very beginning,
the
in the very
beginning.
beginning and
she
like
like lost her
and
marbles.
she's like sitting
Yes.
there clicking the pen
Yeah.
and you can see it in when like it switches in the episode where we kind of see the
Mhm.
backstory
Yes.
from the teen's point of view as he
Yeah.
is called, where he's like kind of laughing during it and he's
Mhm.
like, no, I was breaking during that scene, like I was not supposed to be having those reactions but I couldn't help it. And I'm like, but also that improved the character. It didn't delete from it
Yes.
because like, yeah, a 16-year-old kid is going to sit there being like, excuse me.
Oh, what is happening?
Well, also she was being bonkers. Like, what is
Yeah,
the thing she writes in the notebook?
Yes.
She's like, "Ah, la, la,
total loser.
Yeah.
Or totally lying. And then she's
And
sitting
then
there
just like
clicking the
the
pin and
way
he's
that
like, It's not working. Oh, now you
la."
can
Right.
write.
No, no,
Nope,
now it's
no,
open.
no,
No, no,
now it's
no.
not again."
I love that like mirroring of those two up like that scene too, because it's so funny when you see it like how Billy saw it. Because even when
Mhm.
he's like trying to get out of the house, like the way that we saw it initially was like he was this super talented person who's like doing a flip and all this jumping off. And then in reality, he's like, oh, careful, don't fall. I'm out on the roof.
And then she's like, "Stop, police." And he's like, "Please don't call the police. I can't have this on my criminal record."
So cute.
uh but no, I thought his was the greatest, but I did like all the rest of them is just so stacked, and it's just watching
Yeah.
some of like the best crafters like work their magic if we're going to be punny about it.
I will
But
say honestly, the one that took me a while, and it's just because I feel like some of the scenes felt a little recycled. It was Aubrey Plaza, where I was very much like, this is Aubrey Plaza being Aubrey Plaza. I love Aubrey Plaza, but a lot of it feels like April Ludgate at times, where I'm just like,
Oh,
okay. And it took me towards the end to get more into her character and performance, where towards the beginning I was like, yeah, she's just Aubrey Plaza-ing all
oh
over the
no. And I
place.
guess I've seen some of her stuff, but not all of it. Um, but I thought she was magnetic to look at the whole
Oh,
time.
absolutely.
She
Yeah.
just gets more beautiful, which I really think is unfair of her.
Mhm.
yeah.
Really
Well,
beautiful. And like you could tell she was having such fun when she would do like the vintage witchy laugh from like old
Yeah.
movies and stuff.
Yes.
they
Can't not
really let
love
her
that.
shine with that, where they're like, "You get to be the cackler." And she was like, "Great news. Thank you
She's
so
like, I
much."
wanted to do
Yeah.
this. I've always wanted to do this.
You
I don't
found
know
my
if either of you
energy.
watch Hot Ones at all, but there's a Hot Ones versus with Aubrey Plaza and Patty Lupone that is
Are
very
you
funny.
joking?
Oh, it's
Oh,
very
I have
funny
to see
because
that.
and they do most of their press together. The two of them is that's
I
the
know they're
pairing.
friends, yeah.
Well, they
Well,
lived
they live
Right.
together.
together,
I
and
saw
Patty
that.
Lupone almost killed Aubrey Plaza,
Yes.
apparently. So, so it's very funny to see the two of them eating wings, but it's the two of them are just unhinged in this episode of Hot Ones versus. Highly
Oh,
recommend.
I'm looking that up after this. That's what I'm
Oh,
gonna
you
do.
need to.
No,
Well, and
the kid that I no longer have with me was a massive fan of Aubrey Plaza, and she also liked Hot Ones. And I'm like, how did I never see this episode unless it was right
oh,
after we were no longer watching that together?
oh
But
yeah,
yes.
no. I mean, it was recent for the press junket.
Oh, okay.
So
So
yeah,
that's why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's
Uh
Yeah.
for this.
yeah. But
Well, I'm super looking that up.
to pull it back a little, so Agatha All Along stars Catherine Hahn as Agatha. And when we are first introduced to her, she's still under the spell that Wanda put her under. And the first episode is very much like homage to the WandaVision of it all, where
Yes.
it's like this
Hmm.
is a pretty one-to-one, like she's stuck in a TV show again because that's what
Mhm.
Wanda liked to do.
Hmm.
And then this boy helps break her out. She has this fight with Aubrey Plaza that is just like, well, these are two gay women fighting each other. Like, everyone made lots of jokes about that throughout the show. And this teen, who she doesn't know at the beginning, is Billy Maximoff because he has a sigil placed over him. convinces her to take him to the witch's road. So she gets a coven together and they go down the road together as they are chased by the
The
Salem
Salem Seven.
Seven, who
Mhm.
are the children of the witches that Agatha killed way back when. Very effective and scary horror elements coming from
Yeah.
those. So that's the overall plot. We've already been doing a little bit of a general review, but like, guys, we're going to be spoiling everything. So
Yeah, we've already spoiled a lot of things,
yeah,
so
If
so
you've
stay
made
tuned
it
for
this
more
far, yeah.
spoilers.
yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure we did a general overview because we have been talking and so excited about the show, but I'm like, oh, we should probably have some
Probably.
context. So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I really loved Laura. Something you mentioned about it was like the Sasheer Zamata of it all, and the fact that they
Yes.
really paid an homage to Black women in this show.
Yeah, I actually have more on that too.
Okay.
If this is more about like white feminism and how Black women have actually helped hold up white
Mhm,
feminism and how white women have benefited from Black women all this time and how she wasn't like her power was withheld from her and she has this moment where she takes her power back
mhm,
and it's like somebody said they think it's something that they stumbled upon when they were writing the show, but it seems more intentional to me that it was a situation where a white witch bound her and kind of like gaslit her the entire
mhm,
time into thinking that she didn't need these powers and that it wasn't a big deal for her to not have them or that she just wasn't using them in the right way or needed to try harder or something. But it's more about how women who don't think about their race have
mhm,
so much privilege and
Mhm.
how they're supporting this system that like keeps other people down. And
Yeah.
I thought that was just like a fascinating way to portray this, or even if that wasn't like totally intentional, the way that people have been able to take that away from this. And I just thought it was so well done too. And especially that episode where Jen gets her power back and has this
mhm.
moment because she, I think, is a root, or she's
Yeah,
connected to root magic.
she's like a potions witch who
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
focuses on root magic.
Which we
And
also learned about through like Legendborn that we covered
yes.
on the podcast. Listeners will know about Legendborn, but I thought that that was just like such a good point to make how even when we learn about like the Witch's Road and how Agatha has been getting all of her power, we see that she's often taking the power of witches who are Black women
Mhm.
or women of color.
Yes.
And it's just a way to recognize how a white woman is taking the power from these underprivileged groups of people, these underprivileged women, and holding herself up and not recognizing the privilege that she has.
Well, and I do think that you're right that in some senses they did stumble upon those items where like they didn't know that Jen was going to be a Black woman when they originally cast
Mhm.
her. But I think it shows that like sometimes
Then they
when
got more
you
intentional.
yeah, sometimes when you cast people and then you change the story to fit around them, it actually makes the storytelling better. And like
Mhm.
having Jen be a Black woman like added so much, and like having people of color on the writing staff also helped because there's
Oh,
certain
geez.
jokes that
Yeah.
like I know, like scrolling on TikTok, a lot of like Black people felt very seen and like they felt it like
Mhm.
incredibly comedic when they're in the morgue scene and Jen is struggling to get out of the bag and Jen goes or and Agatha goes, "Don't steal her struggle" to like a gay man. And they're like, a lesbian telling a white gay man not to steal the struggle of a Black woman is just
That's
so
funny.
incredible. And they're like, and it's so layered. And like it's a throwaway joke that's kind of you could see it in one way where it's like, well, it's
Yeah.
Agatha being Agatha, but it's like, oh no, there are like layers to that joke that like
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
screenwriters who are much smarter than me could create. And like if you notice it, you get to laugh about it.
I think
So
so.
um, but I also noticed, Laura, that like a lot of the witches in like the flashback scenes are women of color and
Yeah.
they are very
They're the ones having
prominent.
their power taken from them.
And they're
Yeah.
probably the originators of a lot of magic in America
Yep.
in
Right.
this world because
Yep.
Right.
that is very accurate.
Coming from
So,
African beliefs and stuff. Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
Nice.
So,
I
I,
I like that a lot because I'm a plantser as a writer, and I feel like I stumble upon things that then become the important thing.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
that's so good.
I totally
Uh,
buy that.
well, and I really loved the Jen character because she also was like the the one who's the most outspoken about like how ridiculous the situation is.
Oh yeah, she's
Like,
immediately calling things out, and she also brings a little bit of humor into situations too, like the moment where Patty LuPone calls teenager, and she's like, "Damn,
Oh, you
using
called
his
it by
full
his full
name."
name,
you
which
called him
is
by his
again
full
like a Black cultural thing. Like, you got
or when she and Patty LuPone are in the like cave walking together, and she goes, 5 minutes ago, Lilia would have never said this to me.
I also love that she was the one that got to say when they sing like the big sacred chant, which is road. Well, she was pitchy to Patty LuPone.
Could you imagine having to say that with a straight face to Patty
Oh,
LuPone?
I could because everyone there in the room knew that was
they were in
bonkers
on the
thing to
joke.
say.
Yeah.
But it was just so good. And I would like to note that in the show, all the directors were women, and this is also a show that was one of the least cost, like the cheapest to make
It had
Oh,
a
because,
super
interesting.
low budget. It was like 17 mil, which is
and
very low.
they didn't use CGI. And honestly, this was some of them, like, they didn't use CGI very often because it was
Right.
so low budget. But like, they wanted, I mean, of course, there's always going to be like a narrative around things like this. Like, they probably didn't get as big of a budget from Marvel as they could have.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, well, they got these practical effects where they're like, okay, we're going to build a set and have golden age of television, Wizard of Oz style storytelling. And I think people do not understand how like starved we are for practical effects because
Yeah.
everyone just does CGI nowadays. And seeing it, like, this is a beautiful set. Like, it's beautiful every single moment of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, like, that's so effective. And it stinks that they didn't get as much, like, fanfare and money because I think this is one of the better Marvel products that have come out in a while. But I
Yes.
think those hindrances also helped them in a way because it made, like, the best, most beautiful product.
I will say though, it also was a property that was very much review bombed and hated on before it even
Gosh.
came out
Yes. Oh my gosh.
because the people involved were, very open about saying like there's all women cast, there's a lot of representation of the queer community, and I think Aubrey Plaza was the one that said something like, "Yeah, I hope it's the gayest Marvel property. Otherwise, that's why I got involved. Like,
Yeah.
I hope that it's the gayest Marvel property." And so, Marvel Bros come out of the woodwork
Right.
to review bomb it, and so many people online were then really eating their words because this was a really excellent show. And I think it proves that, you can have so much representation, and if it's done well, people will respond to that.
Also, could you imagine having a show about witches where you're like, you know what, that should be heterosexual? Like, what?
Yeah, and
Clearly.
lots of white men. That's what we need.
Like,
And
it
not
is,
to go over the same ground, but like these ladies, like we spoke about Sasheer, and I let y'all keep talking, but I never noticed from her like previous comedic things. That lady is stunning.
Mm.
yes.
Goodness gracious. Her in that pink dress. Mm.
Also, just like they do not hide that. Like every
No.
time she is on screen, Joe Locke is like, look at her beautiful skin. Look at how
Mhm.
wonderful that woman is. And it's like, good.
Heck yes.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the Jen character. I feel like a character who didn't get enough of her flowers because she just like didn't have as much of a story telling her story arc was the Ali On character, Alice Wu
Alice.
Gulliver.
I
Uh
love that episode.
it was
I
such
Oh
thought
a
my
Alice was really good.
gosh.
I thought she was so good, but I was like I kind of was sad that she didn't get more
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah, me too.
But somebody has to go first, right?
yeah.
Mm.
Well,
No, that's
technically, the
like
lady
that's
from
my
that 70s
childhood. That
show went for
yeah,
Deborah Showrup went first from that
right.
70s show.
Uh-huh. Which
That's true.
someone I was reading reviews online and they were like, it is a crime that in the next episode we got a 70s show like era
And
and
she
she
wasn't
didn't get
there
to be
for
a
the
part of it.
70s.
Wasn't
Yeah.
in it.
They're like, no one got to make that joke. Like, um but I did think like I was a little bit sad we didn't get more of her, but I also thought it was effective because like a huge
Yeah.
part of her story is the like
Generational
tragedy of
trauma.
yeah, generational
Right.
trauma and the tragedy of death where like
Right.
so the Alice character wants to go onto the road because she's trying to look for answers after her mom died, and her mom was obsessed with this curse that she really didn't put any like power into, and
Mm-hmm.
she is a
This curse on their whole
protectionist.
family.
Yes, and her mom was this great 70s rocker who sang the ballad. And they find out that the curse was real, and Alice didn't believe her mom, and Alice is able to break the curse. And then in the very next episode, she passes away, and
Right.
there's like a very sad moment with her and Aubrey Plaza where Rio is talking to her and she's like, it's time for you to go now. And she's like, I have so much life. I can finally start living it now. And it's
Yeah.
very much like we do not get to choose when we have
Mhm.
our last moments. And so it was very effective to have her lose
Mhm.
that. But then I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I'm sad I don't get to spend more
Yeah.
time with her because she seemed like a
I
caring
do think though,
individual.
like Hannah, the way you're describing it is actually very accurate to how I think you're supposed to feel
Hmm.
because they we as viewers are supposed to want more time with the character
Hmm.
and recognize like there's so much more that could have been done. And
Mhm.
when we bring in Aubrey Plaza, who's like, we don't always know how much time we're gonna get, and you
Yeah.
did what you could with it, and
Right.
that's it. I think that that's just like a beautiful way to end that, even though we're still longing for more,
Right.
because unfortunately, death isn't always
Right.
on
And
our side.
it foreshadows Agatha's relationship with Nikki and how
Yes.
Rio did keep giving her more time and more time. So I think that's just such good writing. But I liked it that like Alice did solve her stuff first and get to like level up to whatever comes after this life, like that was kind of, I guess it was sad. But anyway, as a child of the 70s, like that music is just so hardwired deep into me, and I loved so much. This is something that I know that the Lopez's as a team enjoy doing, and you definitely saw it in WandaVision too, where they would redo the theme song every time. Like how they modulate that into a 70s power ballad, what had been the like medieval sounding
Hmm.
polyphonic chant.
Hmm.
It made me so happy. That
Well,
was
and
the like when
that
I started
70s version is such a
rewatching, that was
bop.
the first one that I rewatched. I was like, that's cool. I had to show this to my kid who's a
Yes.
musician. Yeah, I'm like, here's the original chant, and then here's the 70s power ballad.
Listen
Here's the
to the
total
Love it.
bop. Add
changes.
that to your Spotify arts
Right.
list.
I mean, I was listening to that song for like days
Oh,
after I heard
yes.
it. It was such an earworm.
Absolutely.
Well, and that episode is so good because like that is kind of like I think Laura's right where Aubrey Plaza is kind of a character where it's like, oh, it's just Aubrey Plaza in a different font. But it is where we get some of the like mystery of who Rio is. And then
Mhm.
like we find out in a couple episodes that Rio is death, which is
Mhm.
also makes her like one of the more dynamic Marvel villains
Yes.
because she's not really evil. Like she's just doing what she's
She doesn't
supposed
have
Right,
to
that's
do.
she
just
doesn't have a
Death's
stake in
job.
this.
Right.
Yeah. Uh and like she lets Agatha choose certain things because of their relationship and her feelings for her,
Mhm.
but that's really the only areas where she bends the rules is for this person who she really likes, and like it
Mhm.
comes at a huge cost to Agatha as well as like all these other people.
Are you guys into the comic books?
No,
Not
I
really.
want to get into these
Me
specifically
neither.
because
Yeah.
I've heard that. So, and there's another thing too that somebody mentioned on Reddit about how apparently when Teen has like he has like a very emotional reaction to Alice dying,
Hmm.
and we're a little at least I was a little unsure as to the deep connection there, but apparently there is a deeper connection, and that comes from the comics.
Mm.
And so people were kind of glad that that was shown that they had a little bit of a deeper connection because apparently Scarlet Witch has a deeper connection somehow to Alice's family
Oh.
in the comics,
Oh,
I guess.
interesting.
That's what Reddit people were saying. If someone can clarify on that, like email or DM us, I would
Yeah.
appreciate it. That's read the
Yeah, I'm
comics.
curious too.
No, that's awesome. I do think like the Alice character, it it was something where Teen, who we do find out throughout the show, is Billy Maximoff, who is Wanda's
Mm,
child. And people actually didn't think they were going to touch this storyline because it's kind of messy with the like reincarnation and
sure.
existence of these two twins. They just kind of were like, maybe they'll pull them from a different timeline. And so doing this was like very effective, and they didn't really hide it. It wasn't a shock.
Right.
When the show came out, they were like, here is a like Billy Maximoff figurine. And here's Wiccan, which is his Marvel
Right.
name. So
Yeah.
they weren't really hiding it, but he like I could see where he got the deeper connection with Alice really easily because he's looking for community and he's so starved for community after like it has to be traumatic with the way he was born. Like he wants to find his brother who's his twin and he knows that he's like mostly he has like this weird existential crisis of like is he Billy Maximoff
Mhm.
or is he William,
Is he
and
William
he's
Kaplan?
yeah,
Right.
and he's fighting those two things often. And so I think when he finally meets the witches, he's finding community, and it's like a
Mhm.
very good telling of that. And Alice is the first one who shows like genuine kindness towards him that isn't just like, well,
Mhm.
he's here and we have to protect him. She's like, no, I want to like teach you and share this spirit. And so like I could see where someone who has those like deep dark secrets and like existential crises going on and like wish to find his family and community would react really
Latch
strongly to
on to
that
that.
death of someone.
I
Yeah.
think for me, it just was like, it didn't seem like it was enough time, I think,
Yeah.
for me to quite fully like wrap my head around
Okay.
the deep connection there. But I totally get what you're saying.
No,
Yeah.
that's interesting to know. I have a question about Billy and what's the other brother's name? Tommy.
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 Like, I didn't go back and rewatch WandaVision. It's been a little while, but I thought that the kids were like part of Wanda's whole like fantasy realm that she conjured up that they weren't real.
So they're
Correct.
so technically they are not real, but because she is a chaos witch, she can
Right.
create like actual life, but like it was in this type of construct. So it's a little bit of
Right.
like wibbly wobbly
No,
timey
but
wimey.
right.
Like
I love that because then this kid that, does and doesn't really exist transports into the body of a living human that just died
hmm
and then takes over
Mhm.
that being. And then he has the same power over,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
he can create that which never was. Like that's freaking deep for some comic books.
Yes.
Like,
Oh yeah, which is why they didn't think they would touch it. They were kind of like, "Oh
Mhm.
no, they would never try
oh
to do this like
no.
weird reincarnation because like that is this tale of the story." And I think that's why that like Billy has to have Wanda's powers because then he
Right.
has like a level of her chaos magic so he in turn can do for
Mhm.
Tommy what he did for
Right.
himself to protect
Right.
himself. And
Oh,
it's
I'm
just
all about
like
it.
it's so I really think they took a lot of swings with the like, oh no, we're going to full on do witches and death, and it's going to be like
Mhm.
darker and a little bit more complex for Marvel. And I was thinking about that with the review bombs because I'm like, they probably were fine with stupid Doctor Strange and his like,
Yep.
Right.
well, I can do different space level and time things because I'm
Right.
a scientist. But
Right.
the
And we're just
second
going to
you
say lots of science words
right
and very fast Benedict Cumberbatch
Let me just
Shakespearean
make a
y.
sparkly circle orb over
Right.
here.
right, like, and just with my two fingers doing a circle, but really my mind is the power. And it's
Right.
like we could have all of that, but the second you
Right.
make like natural and witches
Right.
and
Nothing
like
actually spiritual or right. Yeah.
Mhm.
right, they're like,
And
oh,
definitely
that's too
not
much.
women.
Yeah,
Oh, women are the
exactly.
worst.
And like women of color, are you kidding me?
Oh no.
Oh, come
Like
on.
it's
Yeah.
just so I really like that they took those swings because there's so much to comic books where like
Me
Laura
too.
and I talk about this all the time where we're like, you can make a million worlds, but you still have to make like oppression in the same way, shape, and form that we have it here. Like that's so
Right.
Right. Can
strange.
we not? Yeah. And why are
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
even talking about this in 2024, by the way? Why isn't this like settled when we were
Mhm.
children and now we just
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah,
Yep.
that's a cool show.
Yeah,
Ah.
exactly. Because women can't have nice things.
Yo.
I thought
But
that episode though where they revealed that Billy took the basically like took the opportunity and inhabited the body of William. I
Yeah.
thought that was very well done too.
It was, yeah, very
yeah.
I thought
clear
it was
with,
just like so neat to see this character kind of
yeah.
struggling to understand why he doesn't feel like he belongs.
Mhm.
And I just really appreciated that. And then the ways that they like tie in the other members of the cast into this, it was just like chef's kiss. Like this was when the show got like a lot deeper for me, I
Oh,
think,
how
is
like he ran into kind of little cameos of everybody
hmm
before. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. That was neat.
Because I
They
think before then I was just I wasn't picking up on as much of that. But then when we get into that episode specifically, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's all connected. And
Yeah.
I was very in.
well, they also have a fan theory that he's the reason that Alice got fired from being a police officer because she couldn't hear his name, so she could not actively investigate his claims, like in his like.
Because of the sigil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to have like those types of fans, which is something that we had in WandaVision and we kind of like got away from in other Marvel joints, but like it's so good.
Hmm.
But
I also love that he flies like Vision. That's so precious to me.
Yeah.
it's so
I think it was cool too to have the addition of like William Kaplan's parents
good.
and also the boyfriend that
Hmm.
I think people are thinking that this might also be that the boyfriend might be part of Young Avengers in the future. We're unsure. People are speculating that. But
Okay.
I'm just going to say that it's just boyfriend this time. But I
Right.
thought that was just like a really nice tie-in to it all to add some depth to the character to show
Mhm.
that he is just having such a weird lifetime because he's not understanding why people are telling him that these things are true about himself and he knows that he's someone else and it feels like such a weird sensation to think like no that's not me but here I am I can see these pictures of me doing these things and not like put it all together.
Yeah.
That's so
He's
relatable to the kid experience. Like everybody
Yes.
feels that way in their body at some point when they're a teenager, even though most of us are not Billy Maximoff reincarnated.
Right.
I don't know if this is from the comic book source material, but I liked the again representation that we like saw his bar mitzvah and stuff like that. That was
Yes.
neat.
yes. So he was canonically like very Jewish,
I mean, obviously
especially
Kaplan is Jewish last name.
yes. And so people were very excited that like Marvel didn't shy away from that. And that was their
Mhm.
introduction to him was like, no, he is Jewish. That is a very important part of this character. And they kind of made him like more fully fledged in that episode. Like I really loved that episode. I thought they
It
did
was
such an
good.
effective job of showing his life. And I really liked that like you can tell he has a lot of inner turmoil, but he does have two parents who love him
They
and
deeply care about him.
he doesn't seem to question that. Like he knows that like he
Mhm.
has like this part of him who wasn't raised with them and doesn't recognize them, but like you can tell he never has a problem with them loving him, like he loves them genuinely back.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really effective because like he does have two parents. He talks about it where he's like, I have parents. I actually
Mhm.
I don't need to find Wanda and Vision. I need to find my brother because I don't have him in my life and I want him back. And I
That's
thought that was
true.
a very unique narrative because it's not something we see very often is like
That's so nice. Yeah.
strong
And
sibling relationships.
realistic parenting too. Like they gave him his space and like
Hmm.
he,
Yeah.
was independent in ways that are realistic for a teen, but he wasn't like I feel like TV families either they're like smothery
Hmm.
and like too much control over the child or the kid is just running wild. But of course
Or
most
it's like
kids are neither
where
of
are your
those.
parents?
Right. And like why are you making all these insane choices? Yeah, like that's
Yeah.
not how most kids are. Yeah. So
He,
no. And
and
again,
when you
I feel
stay
like
away
that
for 24 hours, they're
right.
like, where
Yeah.
were you?
Probably down to so many women in the on the creative team, right?
Hmm.
That like
Hmm.
because I don't know if you
I
guys have
agree.
kids. Like that's yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's very apt.
Yeah.
Like this is such a deeply rich show on so many levels
It
when it
really is.
looks
I now like have talked to you guys for 45 minutes and I'm like, I have to watch it again. Oh
I've
darn.
been rewatching it today to like prepare for
Nice.
this so that I
That's
can
why
have it
you were
fresh in
able
What a
to
my mind.
treat.
perfectly quote back the total loser.
Yes, because I heard it was like such great line reading from her. Like it's so good. Uh
Can we
but
talk about one of the best episodes, which was the Patty LuPone tarot card
Goodness,
oh my
yes.
reading
gosh.
episode?
It was so good. So this show, like this episode, through all the trials, they all have like specific homages, and this is the one that feels
And
like the
each
most
witch
like
of the coven has to like do their part to help them through the
They're right. So she's
trials.
the divination witch. Yeah.
mhm. And so
Yes.
she has to do a reading. She's not really sure who she has to do the reading for at first, but
Which was great.
it's like the
Hmm.
most medieval like round table with these like swords falling on them, and it's supposed to like make you do a jump scare every time the sword like falls. They do like
And
specific
Right.
this
camera
is the one where they're all
action.
dressed as the different witches
Hmm.
too,
Right.
And she's dressed as
She's
Glinda.
Glinda.
which is hilarious.
And like the showrunners did say like she was always going to be Glinda when they figured out they were doing this, because like she's supposed to be goodness, and they knew she would hate it. Like the character
Yep.
herself
Oh
would like
God, yeah.
physically, because she's like, what am I wearing? This is so offensive.
Which is funny to me because in the 70s episode, she's dressed as Liza Minnelli, which is
Yeah.
objectively much more
Yes.
ridiculous.
Right. Um and
But
she
anyway,
and Agatha is dressed as the Wicked Witch of the West.
yeah,
And Billy is
Maleficent.
Maleficent, and then
Jen
Jen
was Jen
is
the one from Snow White,
She's
the
the
or
evil
hag
queen from
from
Snow
Snow
White,
White. Yeah.
okay?
but black,
Uh
of course, right? With
yeah.
his
Yeah.
like long gray dreads and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And she was like, that was the episode where she was like, we can
Right.
talk about culture appropriation later. Right now,
That's
you
right.
need to read this.
That's right.
And like through this entire series, Patty LuPone has like had random outbursts, and they all say
Mhm.
things like, "Lilia's acting weird again." Like at one
Oh,
point,
so fun to go back and rewatch and
oh my
understand why is she in the corner just freaking the freak out and
god,
then comes back
because
to them.
there's
This
the
is very much like the Hodor
Oh
moment.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my
yes.
gosh.
So like one of the best representations is during the Exorcist episode. She's sitting there screaming with her hands covered, and she
Yeah.
goes, "I hated
Yes.
this the first time."
And then how when she does the correct reading and she's
Mhm,
turning over the cards, like every Three of Swords or whatever, there's like a perfect shot from a previous episode
mhm.
framing that
Mhm.
card and like, oh,
So
just like that's that level of detail in kind of writing, editing, and direction together. Oh, so
Even the
delightful.
shots themselves, like the camera angles and everything, I was so
Exactly.
impressed with in this episode,
Exactly.
where it was just like they had all of the shots perfectly
mhm,
angled and everything. And then I think too, even like the flashbacks from Lilia and Jen in like underneath the road to what
mhm.
was happening were perfectly timed and everything.
Hmm.
I don't know
Oh,
how they did this so well.
so
So they
sophisticated, the back
so
and
they
forth. And like it wasn't too confusing. It was just like,
Right.
holy shit, how are they doing this in 1 hour of TV?
mhm.
Yes.
So they wrote the episode first, and then they did the sprinkling in throughout
Oh,
the
I'm sure that's,
seasons.
yeah.
So
Oh
like
yeah,
Isn't
that was
that how
like they were
makes
everyone?
just
sense.
like, nope,
Yeah,
this is what it's going to be.
right,
And we find out that Lilia lives her life out of time. Like her
Yep.
time
right.
is very like non-sequence. And she talks about like time is just an illusion. Like it's not
It's a
real. And
construct.
it's a
You're right.
construct in the way that like you guys don't seem to understand, because everyone else experiences it in a linear fashion. And she was like,
Right.
I've always lived my life out of order, but like it's getting worse. It wasn't always
Hmm.
this bad, because
Right,
she's lived for hundreds of years by this
right.
point, and she knows that like the end is coming for her.
Hmm.
So she goes through this. We see her like as a child learning about this, her fears of like what took her away from her covens
Hmm.
and her sisterhoods, because like she can see the future, she can live things out of time, and so she sees the end for everyone, and it was just too much pain for her. But throughout the episode we see her slowly coming to accept like her life and how she's lived it, and it was just so beautiful and interesting. Like it was some of the
Hmm.
most like sci-fi elements of the show of like,
With the kind of
Mhm.
time travelness, yeah.
yeah, but it was a very unique experience for this like show to kind of take a turn on and be like, oh, this is what's been happening for Lilia the entire
Right,
time. And you
right,
get to see different scenes where she sees Alice and she's like, don't help Agatha. Like,
right.
and
I may be
she's
wrong on this, but was this I I guess I maybe perceived this episode to be like Lilia like tried to shove this all down for so long because she was fearful of it that she even kind of forgot that that was the situation, and then she was like reminded of it in this episode. Am I wrong on that, or
I think that's a fair reading. I don't think I read it that way, but
Yeah,
I
I don't know
okay.
that
think,
I got that, but I could see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I could
Because it
definitely
seemed
see
like
it.
at times throughout, like when we were getting even the flashbacks, it seemed like she was kind of like coming to realizations like throughout the different
Hmm.
trials even. And I don't know if I kind of took it as like she's like pushing down these things like, no, not yet. Nope, not nope, I'm not doing that, to the point where it was just like she herself was starting to forget her own life and
Yeah, I
things that
would
were
buy that.
happening to her.
I think it's a
Yeah.
really fair reading, because like she does say it's getting worse, and like
Hmm.
Yeah.
she is trying to play with acceptance. So, and she talks about like, I got out of the community, and she really only did like tarot readings for like birthday or parties or
And
bar
bar mitzvahs.
Bar
mitzvahs.
mitzvahs, right?
And she doesn't really practice anymore, and she kind of like holds herself away, and she has a leggings company that she does as a side hustle.
Yeah.
And like, so I think that's a fair reading, Laura, and it's so
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
I
The
just thought that
layers.
whole episode was gorgeous, and Patty
Absolutely.
Lupone, like everyone watched the episode and we were all like, okay, now it's time for her Emmy.
Yep.
Like, just
Completely.
give her the
But
Emmy.
she's been good on other TV too. I saw
Oh
her
yeah.
on Penny Dreadful and I thought she was amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I think
That's
she was on Frasier too, if I'm remembering right.
Oh my gosh.
Niles. Good God, Niles. I
She's
need to
done
see
a
who
lot
she.
of things and she's always awesome. And I
Yeah.
think she's very selective about roles that she takes. So I would
Sh-
guess that this was something that she was probably like, nope, I'm in.
Yeah.
This sounds like me. I will do it. And then she just blew everyone away and was like, you know what? I only need one take to sing the song. I only need
And she was not singing full voice whatsoever.
no.
No. Oh no. She was
Kinda
very rough.
overpowered everyone.
I love it
uh,
so much.
she's so amazing. And
And
just like
really the shot of her like falling too in the castle, like that's
Yeah.
forever cemented in my brain.
I
oh yeah.
know, so beautiful and iconic. Yeah. I also liked it that all the other trials took place in a house and that
Oh
one was
yeah.
a like scary castle.
Yep.
Yeah. I
Like
also
the location morphs for each trial and hers is the castle.
it's
I
very
also love too that she has this moment with Jen where she's like, it's up to you now. And
Hmm.
it's almost like a passing of the torch where
Very
it's just
much.
like, you are the one that has to lead us going forward.
Because
And I think
she's
that it,
outside of time, right? So she knows who the
yep,
final girl is. Yeah.
yeah.
yes. And I think it's like, it almost gives me chills thinking about it, like her passing this torch and then what Jen has to go through in the coming episodes. And then we see
Yeah.
her actually leaving and like flying off because
Right.
it's like, yes, now she's off to literally save everyone and it's her time. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, perfect.
I also love like something that we haven't really talked about, but I didn't think too much about it before this moment, but like Lilia's the one who takes care of kind of the like first antagonists. Like she takes care of
Hmm.
the Salem Seven for everyone. And she's also the oldest character, like of the actresses. I don't think she's like necessarily the oldest of like the actual people there, but she might be. But I think
Of the
that's
witches, you
of
mean?
the witches.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
the actor definitely she's the oldest, but yeah,
She's
the
the,
witch. Her childhood is very around 1500 from the costumes. So,
right. So I think she
Yeah.
could be the oldest
yeah.
witch, like living witch there. And I also love that she gets to be the one to take out seven people then, because
Yep.
like we don't like, and Catherine Hahn is also someone who's like in her 50s and she's
Right.
the starring role of this show in a Marvel Cinematic Universe show.
Hell
And
yes.
like that's pretty big to have like
Yep.
these people who aren't 20-year-olds fighting
Yep.
crime and
Right.
like doing
I
We
all
don't
know
the
all have
things.
to be young to be leading
right.
roles.
I
It
know
can
I'm
be people
harping
who
on the Kristen Anderson Lopez connection, but guess who is almost the exact same age as Catherine Hahn?
exactly.
Eh,
So I do think that like that shows a lot of like, hey, we have these older people who aren't old by any means, but like, well, Patty LuPone's in her 70s, but like she gets to kick butt. She gets to take
So
out all
much
these
butt.
people. She gets to be one of the more powerful witches in this show because she's
I
like,
also
yeah.
think it's like very good to point out too, just by like having different ages of actors
Hmm.
in a show, just to point out like your life does not become less interesting once you hit 30. Like you still because I think there is like this connotation that once people are 30 years old, especially women, that
Yes.
Yeah.
they're not worthy of leading roles, they're not worthy of being in the limelight even because
Hmm.
they're
Right.
considered basically old, ugly, we don't want them
Right.
anymore. And
Well,
I really appreciate that they're willing to be like, no, these are extremely dynamic,
Yeah.
interesting people, and we want to share their story, even if they are a fictional story.
yeah,
Totally. That's
it
so
goes,
important. Speaking of representation, like
Yeah.
over
yeah,
women over 40, it's the most invisible feeling in the world. Can I go on a tiny tangent that's relevant?
Yes.
please do.
So today I saw a video of Jodie Foster, who is, I think, 60, 61, something like that, um, talking about how she became an actor when she was 3. She was in commercials and then she was in movies as a child. And her mother would say to her, like, go ahead, do all, like, work as much as you can now, because when you get over 30, like that's going to be it. And that didn't really happen. And they're like, well, you know, 40, like that's the wall. But how she felt in her 50s, like she still was kind of like struggling and like being perceived by society in a certain way. First of all, she's so stunning and like doesn't get less beautiful with age, and we kind of grumble about that, whatever. Um, but that she turned 60 and she felt, and like when you said the thing about Lilia falling, it she said, Jodie Foster said something that just made my brain like click, that like that like kind of shell just fell away.
Yeah.
And like she just gets to be, she said there's this contentment that comes being 60. And I'm 53. I'm like, yo, can I have that, please? Like, that would be so great. So now I have that to look forward to. But no, like, you can't overstate the importance of, yeah, letting women who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s be powerful characters. Like, it's so time for that.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it's so time for that.
Oh yeah. And I think
that there's absolutely something to look forward at every age. And I think that we need to have, especially for women, more representation of like, yeah, there's more good things to come. Just because you're 30 doesn't mean you're
Right.
unworthy.
I mean,
30
it's
or
looking
older.
Well,
look.
okay, that's the male gaze, right?
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, to be completely blunt, right? Like, you know, menopausal women, they're not fuckable. Like, like, what's the point of them,
How
really?
dare they consider
How dare they?
How dare they want like relationships and sexuality and like a full-fledged life experience? Well, that's the
Their
whole
purpose is
like
just to
rude.
watch their grandchildren.
Oscar winners who are men versus women, like look at the
Yeah,
ages. Like
Yep.
women have to do it early because
right.
people stop caring. And I do think it's sort of shifting in our time span where like there are people who are like, I'm
Getting there.
still amazing. Yeah, it's getting there
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
have like still stunning, the most beautiful women are usually the ones who get to do this. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
like Mare of Easttown with what's her name?
Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet, where it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, she gets to be in her 40s and 50s and like
Right, because
hot.
she's absolute bombshell. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's Kate Winslet, but like it is still hard. And something we talk about often on this show is like love interests, even nowadays, where it's like Zendaya with a 38-year-old man and
Yeah,
their
no.
young love romance. And it's like, why is the man 38 years old and having young
Gross.
love?
Right.
The
No,
fact that
gross.
Hannah and I just recently had to talk about how I was like, wow, it's nice that Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling are both around the same age in Fall Guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these two people are gorgeous. And the fact that I have to be
Hello.
like, Emily Blunt is old. It's great that she's being cast in things as a
As a
leading
love
lady. Like, that
interest.
sounds so ridiculous. Like, oh my
Uh,
gosh.
I
I
remember when one of the James Bond movies, Monica Bellucci was in it, and people were talking crap about how she was too old to be a Bond girl, and he was like, Daniel Craig was like, "Excuse me, she's my age, and if she were older, who cares? It's Monica Bellucci." Like,
Right.
right. It's so
more, yeah,
wild.
much more of
Um,
this.
so wild to be like, oh yeah, all of these people, like Catherine Hahn, could be
Hello.
concerned with like
Right. Although to
anything.
me, like she's very, very sexy. I don't think she's classically beautiful. So let's like expand in that way too,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
Like a lot of
exactly.
things can be attractive and are.
Yeah.
I think she just has this like air about her. I don't know how to
She
describe it,
does.
but she was on some, I don't remember what talk show it was, where she's like walking down the hall and people were clapping for her and she's just like dancing down the hall. And I was
Yeah.
like, I wish I had that just charisma and energy to do something like that. Like she
Me
just
too.
comes off as just being so inviting and fun. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she seems amazing.
She
Well,
does seem really fun and genuine. Yeah.
to bring it a little bit back, like Catherine Hahn playing the scenes about her and Nick
Hmm.
are, or Nicholas, are heartbreaking. And I also loved what this show did because like Laura and I did grow up during like the golden age of Disney, where it's like, look at these terrible women and all they do. And like now we get to see much more complexities with like these type of like antagonist characters. And Catherine Hahn, like in WandaVision, was the big bad. It was Agatha all along. But in this
Hmm.
show, we get to see like the complexities of her, and we get to see a full-fledged human who like has done horrible things, but is also still like grieving the loss of her son. And she says like the reason she's doing them is she cannot face him,
Mhm.
but in trying to run away from the problem, she's just making the problem larger and larger,
Mhm.
and she's still trying to avoid it because she just can't handle it. And I thought that was so beautifully done, and it just shows like a level of grief. And for me, it kind of made her like the same side of the coin as Wanda. Like
Yes.
Oh,
Wanda,
very strong
Yes.
parallel with Wanda. Yeah.
and it's interesting how like it was able to invert the WandaVision era of television, where it's like, well, we had to see like a little bit of a watered down version because Wanda had been this character who had been in Marvel
Mhm.
movies and suffered all this right in front of our faces.
Mhm.
So we all wanted to root for her, but like she and Agatha have made a lot of the same choices at the expense of their family. And like now we get to see Agatha and Billy make those similar choices, where like Billy's making choices that could hurt people because he just wants his brother, and he is someone who is powerful enough to do something about it. And I think it makes us question like what we would do for the people we love in a much darker way than a lot of Marvel
And he
movies
does
typically do.
question that at
Mhm.
one point because he's like, am I going to have to kill someone
Yeah.
to bring my brother back, to get
Hmm.
my brother here? And I do love that there are these moments where these characters are questioning their actions, like you said, Hannah.
Yeah. And
It's
that's the
just
big
different than the like morally gray tough guy villain, like a morally gray woman
There's
who
so
feels so
much
much
more depth
love.
to this
Like
than
she
there
loves
is like
Rio, she
Thanos.
loves her kid. Yeah.
Yeah, then well, Thanos even had like, I mean, it was more brute of like, I think we should get rid of some of the people in the world because I think it'll fix it. But I think it's
I
more
mean,
in depth
points,
because
but
like,
points were made.
um and I think that's interesting, but I think this is more like
This is
it's
deeper.
yeah, it's deeper and it's more feminine and like
Thank
like
you. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, and
And it's
that's
not
so interesting.
fantasy. Like
Right.
Hmm.
everyone loves and loses. That's part of being a human.
Mhm.
That's
So
there's
that's
a
yeah,
there's
richer
a
conflict. Yeah.
WandaVision quote of what is grief if not love
Love
persevering?
persisting.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
yeah, and I'm like,
persevering. Yeah.
oh, that is this show. It is like an extended discussion of that.
Yep.
Because we
Yeah.
find out that Billy has a tell in this TV series of the fact that he is Wanda's son, and it's because he literally created the road. So
Right.
Yeah.
the road doesn't exist, and he made it up in his mind based on things he pulled.
From
Uh,
his surroundings in his room
Right.
mostly.
Right.
and I thought that was interesting because it made me wonder, like, as Agatha goes down the road, is she manipulating Billy to make sure that the road works around them to get out of there? Because there are certain times where
Mhm.
she's telling him things or giving him information, and I'm like, on your second rewatch, I'm always like, oh, this is her feeding him lines to like help.
I question that too.
Yeah.
Where I was like, does she know? Or is she just, because it was hard for me to tell, honestly, because we find out that Billy creates the road and then we get some of that perspective of Agatha where she's just like, what? I was
Oh
really
no,
just ready
she
to
yeah,
just
when she
steal their
like
powers. What the heck's happening?
picks up the sand in the beginning and is like, and then
Mhm.
he's just like, nope, run down the stairs. We're going.
Yep. So she
She's
did
like, oh,
they did say that like she knew at that moment that he was the one who created it likely, but there were moments where she was hoping it might have been Nicholas, but then like she,
yeah,
after Rio tells her like that's not your
that's not
son,
your son.
she
Yeah.
knows like, oh, this is definitely Billy Maximoff. I can't have any like era of like questioning in me. So she knew from that. But then I was like, okay, so she's shaping the road with him where she's like, this is what witches do. And then she like sees it
Interesting.
come to fruition. I thought that was an interesting way to watch it on the second
So
rewatch.
for my rewatch, I'll have to see
Exactly.
how that plays out.
It's also beautiful and heart-wrenching to think about the way that Agatha is still holding out hope that this could be her son
Hmm.
Hmm.
and having to learn again, like, no, this
Yeah.
this is not your son. And her to have to grieve that all over again and again face that, like, I'm not ready to go there yet. Like I'm still
Hmm.
not ready. And
Yeah.
ugh. And to
That's
really
so
kind of
yeah,
have
that's
like
so
a
real. Like
yeah.
you do, you see the one that you lost everywhere and you like wish you could talk about it with them and yeah, like they still belong in the way that you're experiencing the world even though they're not with you. Yeah.
Yeah,
So totally real.
absolutely.
I think that's what makes this show so like it's so wonderful and so beautiful, but it's also incredibly dark because it is a show that like wrestles with our are you someone who should be allowed to do this if you bring harm to others? Because
Mhm.
Agatha brought a lot of harm to a community that was for her son, but like even at the end, he didn't want her making that
Mhm.
sacrifice anymore. And like knowing that he didn't want that is something she still wrestles with. And I think it does show, it's just such a realistic show in the way it
Mhm.
portrays those
Yeah.
complicated discussions.
I will
Mm.
also say too, when we like have at the very end, so there's obviously the big showdown at the end where then Agatha seemingly dies, but she comes back as this ghost, which apparently in the comics is like a
Mhm.
huge thing, that the Agatha ghost is very much involved in all of these different sequences and everything. But so I'll be curious to see how that goes forward with hopefully the next season. But I thought it was kind of neat when we are having this like get together of the two of them talking about these things and kind of like, hashing it all out, that we
Mhm.
see in the background all these things around Billy's room. And
Yeah.
for a big portion of the scene, we can see in the background a Trans Lives Matters flag.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, I'm shocked that Disney went there and was like, you know what? We're doing it. We're going to have this flag shown. And I was like, I'm glad that they did that. That was wonderful that that was present through a very long portion of
Yeah.
the episode.
No,
Yeah.
I
Boys kissing, girls kissing,
mhm.
pride flags.
Yes.
I mean, the show is at its heart incredibly queer, which
The
is something.
queerest Marvel property yet. Otherwise, Aubrey Plaza would not have been involved.
Well, and
Well, thank
Laura,
goodness she was.
Laura and I joked about this because when we originally were like, "Oh, let's do this," she was like, "Oh, we should make sure we get someone queer on," and I was like, "Well, I'm queer, Laura." And she
I
forgot I was bisexual.
so in my worrying about queer erasure, I did erase queer people.
But like the show is incredibly queer, and it shows the beauty of queerness, and it also doesn't shy away from like messier parts where like a lot of queer women were like, no, this like Rio and Agatha are two queer exes who have not gotten over each other and are incredibly messy. But then you also get to see like a huge part of the Billy Maximoff character was that he was a queer man, and that was like one of the first big representations in a comic book. And so it would be disingenuous not to play those homages, and it would be
Yes.
disingenuous to clean those up for the Marvel
Mhm.
audience. Like that is who the Billy Maximoff character was. Comic books, like this is where the white bros of the internet often ruin it, but like comic books were saying something radical and political. Like
Books
X-Men,
have often been ahead of their time.
like there is a people bring it up a lot, but like there's a Superman comic where he punches Adolf Hitler, and
Right.
that was very radical at the time, and people had a lot of feelings about it. Like
Right.
because it was radical at the time it came out to show a superhero doing that. But it's like, yeah, these have always been political, and Billy Maximoff was a character who pushed the envelope on these things. So like letting him get to do that in these like areas is so great and also very frustrating when you find out like Marvel didn't give them a ton of money.
Yep.
And
Oh, yeah.
like there are certain things where like the writer has gone on the record that like she wrote a post-credit scenes, which is a hugely Marvel-esque thing to do, and they didn't film it. And
Are you kidding?
I have a little bit of, or like they filmed it or they did, it was Marvel's choice not to air it. And it's like that is, it makes me frustrated for like queer representation, that it's like you have this huge property that means a lot to people, and then you kind of like tried to push it away from like, well, this isn't a normal Marvel property. And it's like, well, it should be. Like, this is one of the best creations you've done in a long time. And you could have made sure, like, nope, this has its place in this Marvel universe, just like everything else does, and not like kind of push it away and be like, oh, isn't that a cute little thing we tried?
Oh.
Like,
I don't know. I just watched Deadpool and Wolverine the other night, and that was like extremely queer too.
yeah.
So,
That is very true. Uh, but
aggressively so, dare I
Agre
say.
but that's also one of their rated R properties. So it's
Right.
like it's
Mhm.
never one of the like
Right.
mainstays of like, here's this. It's usually like, oh look, Tessa Thompson has a girlfriend in one of the movies, and we're
Oh,
gonna flash to it and then flash away.
right. That's
So
true. No, of the more family friendly ones, I thought this was cool in that way because, like, not for little kids, obviously, but like middle school, young
Mhm.
teens. I feel like they
Yeah.
would love it.
Well, and it introduces like queer representation has always been in the horror genre as well.
Mhm.
It's been huge in horror. A lot of queer representation is like a lot of people see themselves in horror films. So playing these homages to different
Mhm.
ones is also important
Interesting.
because it's also introducing a new generation to something that they may not have known helped to represent themselves before. And I
Yeah,
think that that is also very beautiful.
And I'm
I
not sure
agree.
about the entire cast, but I'm pretty sure that Sasheer and Aubrey Plaza are both queer.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I believe so.
So
Um,
there is queer representation within the
and
actors themselves too.
Joe Locke is also
And
queer.
Joe
He's
Locke.
yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
yeah.
So yeah, Sasheer is a lesbian, so
Hmm.
and Aubrey Plaza is my bi representation, which is a white woman married to a white man who happens to be bisexual. So um, uh but yeah, I'm trying to think
Does
about
anybody
are
have
there
like any like moments that they were like not a fan of in the show?
again, sometimes the Joe Locke of it all like wanes on you
The
on the
Joe
second go
Locke.
round, where he's like, where like when they're flying on brooms and he's like, why wasn't this happening all along? I was like, I didn't need that line reading.
He's so cute though.
I
I
know.
just can't get over him.
uh, and so certain lines like that didn't work for me as much,
I'll tell you what
but
didn't work for me. They tried to do it in WandaVision. I'm just over it. The Ralph Boner joke. Like,
Oh yeah,
oh
that
please
wasn't
yeah,
terribly
stop.
funny.
yeah.
Gosh. It's not funny this time.
I do love that he is at the end of the
He's
day just a
back.
no, that he's a white man in improv where he was like, I could give you 50% off for my show. And it's like
Yeah.
he's sitting there trying to give them a fake name and he's still like, but did you want to see me in a show? Like, what a
Again
ridiculous
with the
human
theater
being.
kid realness.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Um I'm trying to think of anything that didn't work though. It's just
I think as a whole, I don't know of any like problem. That was really just a nitpicky thing where when I was watching that, I was just like rolling my eyes, like, come on, with this Ralph Boner thing.
if
Come on.
someone pointed out that like putting Patty LuPone as the first witch you were introduced to is like a little bit of like, hey, she's the most important character. She's probably the one we cared about the most. Why did we lead with that one? For storytelling purposes, like usually you want to save like
Hmm.
the best showstopper for last, but
The
that's
finale.
an
Yeah.
that's such a nitpick, so it doesn't
That
Yeah.
really.
is, and they very much were messing with our expectations of
Yes.
Mhm.
the order in which truths were presented. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna say that one doesn't bother me. Plus
I
more Patty LuPone.
yes.
Right.
I didn't know if I loved the final showdown between Rio and Agatha the way it played out. Like I think
Hmm.
sometimes it went too hard on the like Marvel fight of it all where they're like, "Oh, she's there at the
I can see why you wouldn't like that because you are not a big like action
action."
I'm not
fight
either.
scene
Yeah.
person. But
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was like I was someone watching Endgame and I was like, when will this end? This
I
fight is
remember that too. Oh
lasting
my God.
forever. Like,
God.
and
My
that
eyes
to me was
glaze
just
over. Yeah.
egregious. Like that was too much. Too
And
much
then like
fighting, too
all of a
much
sudden
action.
Pepper
Yeah.
Potts is there being like, "I'm a woman who will help
No,
this woman."
no, get out of here, Pepper. I don't want you. And so
uh,
this did not bother me at all. I thought it was totally fine, and
Yeah.
I
And
didn't think it was that bad.
it is a Marvel property after all.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
I know. But like it worked less for me. Like during WandaVision, I had the same criticism of like I didn't
uh-huh.
really care about the final showdown fight
Oh.
between Wanda and Agatha
I
because
think when
it's
you're in a show that has like so much depth and takes time to sit quietly in some of the darker and harder moments, it's
mhm.
very hard to get invested into something like that where it's just such a change of pace and it
Yes.
like flips a switch and it's like boom, action. And you're like, but I don't care about this as
Mhm.
much. So I
But
get it, but I
interesting.
don't know that it was
Right.
Yeah.
something where I was like, I'm taken out of this.
Especially, well, I think it was mostly like right after the morgue scene because the morgue
Yeah.
scene was so well done. Like it was a
Mm.
beautiful like moment of Jen saying, "You have no power over me. You have no
Yep.
power over me," and then
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
getting to
And that was so
leave.
silent and
And
oh yeah.
then like Billy and Wanda having, or not Wanda, sorry, Agatha having this beautiful
Agatha.
moment where she's like, "You have the power to do this," and him disappearing and her having that moment where like the last thing he says to her is like, "Am I killing this boy so my brother can live?" And he leaves, and she just has this moment where she goes, "Oh, honey, like sometimes little boys die." And it's just this like beautiful tragic moment, and then she has this like using what she has saved of her son to help her escape this room and like begging for more time.
Mhm.
It was so beautifully done to then to like shift gears into
Yeah.
Aubrey
Mhm.
Plaza cackling. I was like, I needed another break from the episode. Like I needed
You
that
Yeah.
not
needed
to
like
be.
a bigger transition.
Yes, I needed a
Yeah.
bigger transition from this beautiful, like that would have been a great way to end an episode, and then you can introduce it so like there's more of a
Um,
cut scene. But like for me, I didn't love that portion of it. But I think
yeah.
that also
I
went
can get
in,
on board with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
I don't
also
know.
goes
Patty
into,
Patty tied that one together for me because then like the big fight starts and she says, when she calls you a coward, hit the deck, remembering
yeah,
what the
Yep.
last thing Lilia told her.
that was
So
good.
yeah.
But I also think that goes to your criticism, Laura, that like Aubrey Plaza was Aubrey Plazaing a little bit
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Um, and like I really liked the character of Death. I thought it was really good in
Yeah.
the scenes where she was a little bit more quiet and reserved. But then when she's like
Mhm.
more like the Green Witch, I'm like, I didn't need that moment.
No.
Yeah.
Like,
I totally can agree with that. I do think that when when Agatha and Billy are having this moment and he's finding out about like his creation of the road, that him also questioning and blaming himself for killing the members of the
Oh
coven,
yeah.
that is a really good moment too. I don't know if I don't think we brought it up yet,
we
but I
didn't
I don't
just
think
break,
so.
not yet.
I thought that that was a really good moment too, because it is, again, like you said previously, just another opportunity for him to think about like, are the things that I'm doing actually helpful,
Mhm.
or what is the outcome going to be on other people in the world for me,
Well,
is trying to seek out this connection with my brother.
and also
Mhm.
that good inversion of like Agatha being like, you actually saved someone. My entire intent was to murder them in my basement. And by taking them on this journey, you brought them
Mhm.
closure. You brought them, like, Lilia walked into death openly. You
Yep.
saved Alice's life. Like, and
Right.
Sasheer is now like, or, sorry, Sasheer, wow. And Jen is
We
Jennifer.
just
now
want this to be the Sasheer show.
and Jen is
Yeah.
now living with her powers. So, well, I'm sorry, you have like Sasheer Zamata, one of the most beautifully like named and beautiful women in the world, and we named her Jen Kale, which is a Marvel property person, but
So I
like,
learned in some of the press stuff that I watched that she was named after a Star Trek character.
oh, that's so funny because I
Yeah,
looked
and
up
I thought
Jen
that was cool.
Kale, and that is a Marvel Universe person.
No,
Like,
Sasheer is a
oh,
Star Trek.
Sasheer.
Oh,
Okay,
cool.
okay,
Sasheer is a Star
perfect.
Trek character,
Oh,
apparently.
Okay,
cool.
I was very
Speaking
confused. I was
of,
like, wait.
yeah. Speaking of TV that was political and progressive ahead of its time.
Oh, yes, I love Star. I'm a
Like that's what
Trekkie, so
speculative fiction has always led that charge, I would say.
and a lot of Black people are very involved with Star Trek Generate. Like that is a very important show to a lot of people, so
That's
more power to
awesome.
them. But
Yeah.
um I think this show is so important and so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Any
Um
just maybe favorite moment or episode and character?
uh
I have a quick one that
yeah.
we haven't said. I've pretty much like fangirled over my favorite parts. But in the after they lose Mrs. Hart and they have to get a new Green Witch, they do like the ceremony in Latin.
Yeah.
And they say like green sister we call to you as above so below as without so within or whatever it is, and then they say it's not easy being green in Latin. Like,
Because they
that
have the
is
puppets now
for
too.
the nerd linguists like me over here. I like fell out laughing. I was so
That's
pleased with it, and
beautiful.
like everything
Love
in the
that.
whole show I felt like had that level of brainy detail. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, how about you?
that's my last hurrah. It's not easy being green.
Well, Laura, you know, one of my favorite movies of all time is Scream. I love a
Yes.
self-referential TV show,
Hmm.
Yes.
and every single self-referential, like I loved doing a deep dive as we were preparing for this, looking at like all the one-to-ones where it's like, ooh, episode 2 where they're singing the song and they're in a circle. It's pulled from Practical Magic, which is another one of my favorite like films of all time. And I'm like,
Nice.
great news. I love that. And then like The Exorcism, The Season of the Witch, The
Mhm.
Suspiria, like all of that, the like 1980s camp horror, everything about that just like gets ingrained in my soul, along with another thing we've talked about a lot, all of the music Like
Yes.
all of the needle drops in this show are so beautiful. Like the moment you see Billy Maximoff with his little crown and you just hear Billie Eilish in the background going, "You should see
You
me
should
in
see
a
me in a
crown."
crown.
And it's just like, boom, like enough said. And I'm just like, yes, that is beautiful. I'm here for it. And like the season of The Witch by Lana Del Rey, like they picked such good music for this
They did.
show. So amazing. So those were my favorite. Laura, what about you?
I think I'm gonna go with, just to be different, the visual effects and like the cinematography of it just being so stunning. And I don't know that there was a single episode where I was like, I'm not into this. Like looking at it, I was like locked in watching every episode. I wasn't getting distracted because it was so
Yeah.
beautiful to look at, and all of the outfits and the sets and everything were just really perfect, and really I thought they just tied everything together so nicely too. And then my second favorite thing is just the dynamics between the cast on and off screen, because when you're seeing them in some of the press and everything, they get along so well
Oh
and are
yeah.
so supportive
Oh
of each
yeah.
other. Like they're talking about going to see Joe Locke on Broadway, or talking about like Aubrey Plaza and Patty Lupone living together and everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of these things, they just have such great rapport, and I think that that translates on and off screen. So
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
appreciated that as well.
All right. Any final thoughts? Okay. Oh, one fun fact that I liked. Aubrey Plaza starts off in green, and by the end of the show, she
Yeah.
looks more decayed and calcified to show like
Yeah,
death, like her clothing. So it
Hmm.
like
represents death
she's
in the journey as
dying.
well. I
Hmm.
also like that they discussed that death wasn't just about like the actual death, it's about the circular like way of life and everything like that.
My
Because I thought that was
favorite
very,
circular
Yep.
plot
very
arcs of any kind.
so good. All right. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for coming
This
on to
was so
chit chat with
fun.
us as we
Ashley, do you
all
want to tell our listeners a little more about your work
Sure.
and where they can
So,
find you?
you introduced me as the author of Undiscovered, which is my currently only novel. I'm working on a semi-sequel, kind of adjacent story set in the same world, but gestures to everything around. It's going real slow. I have also written short fiction, poetry, a creative nonfiction that's not out in the world yet. Lately, I've been editing for friends within my little indie publishing house, Shadowspark Publishing, which I've been a part of for a couple of years. So everything words. Yeah, just all the words.
And where can we find you online?
The easiest way to find my link tree, because link tree addresses are weird, is just go shadowsparkpub.com/Ashley-Anglin,
Okay,
which will have links to my books there. It also has my link tree with kind of everything else, yeah, that
Oh,
I'm up
good.
to.
cool. And
Uh,
I'll put that in the show notes for listeners as
Yay,
well.
and thank you for asking.
of course. And something we always ask people who join us, what's something you're reading, watching, and or enjoying? This could be book, TV show, video game, anything you want.
I just finished a round of edits on a book that's coming out early next year, for a friend of mine within the publishing house. So I'll plug that because it's great. It's called In the Name of Honor. It's
Hmm.
kind of like if the guys from Lord of the Rings, with their like one lone woman, met the newest Doctor Who and had that reckoning of like, please deal with all your trauma and like be good to each other and care for each other, um, with lovely yearning romance and terrible creepy monsters and like satisfying ending. Yeah, so that's
Love
the
And
most
who's the
that.
recent.
author?
It's a team, married team, Clark and Courtney Collins.
Okay,
Oh,
well, we will definitely
fun.
be checking that out
Yeah, that sounds
because
amazing.
Yeah, no, that'll be out in January, and I'm a huge fan. Yeah.
Well, everyone, keep an eye out for that. Go read Ashley's work. And make sure you guys just follow along. You know, you can follow us at OWWR Pod on all the social platforms or check out what we're doing over at ourpod.com. And please join us tomorrow as we continue on our indie mission as we read The
yes,
Fires of Treason by
Fires of
Michelle
Treason.
Quirk. So join us there for our regularly scheduled bonus episode
Yeah.
programming. Thanks again, Ashley.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right, let's go down, down, down the road, down the
Down the
windy
witch's
road.
road.
uh, and to glory at the end. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.